Let's begin with our invocation. Do keep yourselves muted. Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Dharani Satyamayi Dharani Satyamayi Dharani Satyam Jnana Satyam Jnana Jyoti Aravinda Jyoti Aravinda. So this is a screen share that we saw a couple of Savitri classes ago, but we begin with it. It's a quote by Khalil Gibran. Many of us spend our whole lives running from feeling with the mistaken belief that you cannot bear the pain. You run from feeling because you feel the pain will be unbearable. But Gibran says you have already borne the pain. What you have not done is to feel all you are beyond that pain. See, whether you like it or not, you're going to bear the pain. But while bearing the pain, what you're missing out on is finding that part of you which is beyond the pain. So what in us is really beyond the pain? Is there some part of us when we are going through pain? Is there something in us which is not touched by the pain, cannot be touched by the pain?
The psychic?
But that's the word for many of us. In your experience, Param, what do you feel is not touched by pain?
The divine, the divinity within us.
Yes, but in your experience, what is that divinity?
The soul.
But these are words. Experientially, what is it that's not touched by pain?
There's a soft voice inside you which always tells you that you'll be safe.
Okay, the intuition that tells you that you'll be fine. Okay. And okay, let's look for an answer in a simple practice. All of you sit tall and shut your eyes. This will just take 2 minutes. Now, as you shut your eyes, direct all your attention to the breath in the nostrils. Follow the air up your nostrils as you inhale and as you exhale. Your attention is divided between thought and breath. Try and pull attention out of thought and invest it fully into the breath. Just do this. I'll time you for 2 minutes only on my watch. 30 seconds more to go. Stay with your breath. Last breath, and our 2 minutes are over. 2 minutes is, of course, a very short time for this process. But did you find that when you were with your breath, your thoughts kind of slowed down? And when your thoughts slowed down, you became aware of a substrate piece in the background. Did you feel a kind of background piece coming forward as the thoughts became more distant from you? Yeah? So that background piece is the awareness inside you, which is never touched by thought or the pain that it generates. But if our thoughts are very fast and we are completely identified with thought, we are not in conscious touch with this awareness. And some Savitri classes back, we studied these beautiful words of Sri Aurobindo, where he says that whenever you're caught by the contagion of a negative vibration, look for that in you which is not touched by that vibration, which is outside that vibration. And the awareness in us is always outside it. So as Gibran says, when we go through pain, we are already feeling the pain. There's no escape. But what we haven't done is the game changer. We haven't looked for that part of us which is beyond the pain and untouched by pain. So these are Eckhart Tolle's words. See if you can catch, that is to say, notice the voice in the head, perhaps, in the very moment it complains about something and generates pain, and recognize it for what it is, the voice of the ego, no more than a conditioned mind pattern, a thought. Whenever you notice that voice, you will also realize that you are not that voice, but the one who is aware of it. In fact, you are the awareness that is aware of the voice. In the background, there is the awareness. In the foreground, there is the voice, the thinker. In this way, you are becoming free of the ego, free of the unobserved mind. Again, told, this is what we looked at in class yesterday also. Are you worried? Do you have many what if thoughts? If you're worried, many of your thoughts begin with what if. You are identified with your mind, which is projecting itself into an imaginary future situation and creating fear. Now, as we said, if you imagine a very good wrestler in your head, and even if your imagination is very good and I tell you box the wrestler, can you box the wrestler? You can't. It's imaginary. So when you're fighting your fears, you're trying to box an imaginary wrestler. It doesn't exist. How are you going to fight it? It's just your imagination. And the only way it can be fought is to see through and to see that it's only imagination. There is no way that you can cope with such a situation because it doesn't exist. It's a mental phantom. You can stop this health and life corroding insanity simply by acknowledging the present moment. Become aware of your breathing. Feel the air flowing in and out of your body. Feel your inner energy field, all that you ever have to deal with, cope with in real life, as opposed to imaginary mind projections, is this moment. Ask yourself what problem you have right now, not next year, tomorrow, or 5 minutes from now. What is wrong with this moment? And you'll probably find nothing. You can always cope with the now, but you can never cope with the future, nor do you have to. The answer, the strength, the right action, or the resource will be there when you need it, not before and not after. So, as Vinita was saying, this is the voice in your head which tells you it'll be fine, you'll cope with it, the Kalyan Shraddha. And very often we are overthinking because we feel we'll think ourselves to safety. But this line is telling us there's no such thing, because the way grace works is the answer, the strength, the right action comes to us when we need it, not before, not after. So there is no such thing as thinking our way to safety. And actually, it's the unknown factor in the future that makes us anxious. But till we achieve the supramental status, which we may not in this birth, we are never going to be able to know the future. The future is always going to be unknown to us. So there's no point second guessing it. And Sri Aurobindo says all you need to know is that you have a soul within and grace above. So whenever there's an incessant need to know what will happen, what will be the result, what will be the outcome, beautiful words of Sri Aurobindo, you have a soul within and grace above. And finally, that's all you need to know. The unacceptable. Very often our mind is labeling many things as unacceptable. The unacceptable is so because it's seen divorced from the mother. Suppose Param behaves in a way, hypothetically, that I called unacceptable with me. It's because in that moment, I'm not seeing Param as the mother. I'm seeing Param as a form, as somebody separate from the mother. The moment all is seen as the mother and the mother alone, the un in the word unacceptable dissolves. It becomes acceptable. There is a saying, God does not ask us to understand him, he asks us to trust him. So I maybe can't understand Param's unacceptable behavior, but if I see that Param is also mother, I just trust this behavior as part of the whole. It needs to be what it is. I'm going to move on. I'm not going to try and understand it. If one has to let go of the understanding that makes any perception, person, circumstance unacceptable, one has to let go too of trying to understand how it can be acceptable. See this when when I'm calling Param's behavior unacceptable, my mind actually wants the solace of thinking, how can I accept it? How can I think of it in a way that it's acceptable to me? The simple faith that I accept because it's a realm of God. It doesn't have to make logic to me, but Param is part of the realm of God, and I accept. A realm of Mother, I accept too because I glimpse the emptiness of all form, shunyata of the Buddha. It is empty of an inherent separate self who I can oppose. Can that which does not exist be opposed successfully? So Param as a separate entity does not exist. He's part of the whole, which is the body of the Lord. It's my mind which, as Sri Aurobindo says in Savitri, cuts the sky into many strips and takes each strip to be the whole sky. And it can be. But Param has no ontological reality of his separate from the whole. So if I'm fighting Param, again I'm fighting a phantom. There is no Param out there. Can that which does not exist be opposed successfully? Yet every form is full of the divine presence. So I'm saying Param doesn't exist, but I'm not saying nothing exists there. Where my mind is seeing a Nam Roop Kun Param, there is only the realm of Mother, only the realm of God. Yet every form is full of the divine presence, what Vashishta calls Brahma Swarup in his conversation with Lord Ram. So Vashishta's guru was Rama's guru, and there was a conversation where he takes Ram through a whole process till he sees everything as Brahma Swarup. Whenever a person acts difficult, let's call the person A, resistance arises, and every resistance is loaded with the inarticulated, I do not understand. I don't know why you have to behave so rude or so difficult or whatever, isn't it? Whenever we resist anything, it's loaded with maybe not an articulated, but I don't understand. On the heels of this can come the knowing that A2 is an empty boat. Remember, we've done this story many times, but I'll revisit it. There was a monk meditating on a lake. So there was a monk meditating on a boat in a lake, and a boat came and kept knocking against his boat. And he said, no, I'm a monk. I need to meditate peacefully, not get disturbed. But it went on happening till he lost his temper. He turned around and yelled, can't you see I'm trying to meditate? Why do you keep knocking your boat into mine? And when he opened his eyes, he saw that it was an empty boat which was hitting against his boat. There was no person driving the boat. The boat had lost its anchoring, and it was the wind and waters which was pushing it the way it was. So the point is that the difficult person is an empty boat. We think there's a person in that vehicle, but it's actually just a mechanism moved by forces of Prakriti to do what it has to do. So A2 is an empty boat. His behavior is about the forces of nature that move the empty boat that he is. Why take it personally by seeing him as a person and myself as one too? He behaves so because the whole behaves so. I cannot understand the whole, but I can trust the whole. We started by saying God does not ask us to understand him, he asks us to trust him. But God is the whole. So if I apply it to the difficult person, that the difficult person is also the whole, I cannot understand the whole, but I can trust the whole. That is so because that's how it's meant to be. That iti, it is as it is of Vedanta. Any questions? Anything to share till here? Okay, then we can go ahead. This is synthesis of yoga. So before we come to this, so far let's weave the thread of what we've spoken. We started by saying that whenever we are undergoing pain, there is a part of us which is outside the pain. And a very powerful way out of the pain is to get in touch with that in us which is never touched by the pain. Then we went on to saying that whenever we are suffering because of a difficult person, we have to remind ourselves that that difficult person is also part of the God realm. And we cannot understand the God realm because its intelligence is too infinite for us, but we have to trust it. So even if the person's behavior is unacceptable to our mind, the moment we see it as part of God, we stop trying to understand it, we simply trust it and we accept it. Then coming back to what we were talking about, that part of us which is outside the pain, in traditional yoga, it's called awareness or Purusha. And interesting that in Hindi, man is called Purusha because, and in Sanskrit also, man is called Purusha because there's such a recognition that that awareness is truly what we are. And the play of thoughts, the play of emotions, the physical body, everything that changes in us is Prakriti. And what never changes inside us is Purusha. So these are the two aspects of our being, Purusha and Prakriti. Now let's see it in Sri Aurobindo's language. A changeless, imperishable infinity, a timeless eternity. He's describing the Purusha. It's a changeless, imperishable, it can't be destroyed. It's the, in the Anandamayi chant, Parame, that in us which is unbreakable, imperishable, a changeless, imperishable infinity, a timeless eternity, a self-awareness which is not this receptive and reactive or tentacular. Tentacular is which gives its tentacles into things to try and possess them, or tentacular mental consciousness, but is behind and above it and present to below it, even in what we call inconscience. So this awareness is there at every level of the being, even in the inconscious. A oneness in which there is no possibility of any other existence are the fourfold character of the settled experience. Yet, this eternal self-existence is seen by him also as a conscious time spirit bearing the stream of happenings, a self-extended spiritual space containing all things and beings. So everything is contained in this awareness. I finally can't call it my awareness because it's an awareness which is omnipresent, present everywhere. A spirit substance which is the very form and material of all that seems non-spiritual, temporary, and finite. So this is what we were reading in the earlier screen share, that it's the spirit substance which is the very form and material that of all that seems non-spiritual. Take the Param example. His behavior to me was unacceptable, but really even that unacceptable behavior is this same spirit substance, which is the very form and material of all that seems non-spiritual, temporary, and finite. This is again synthesis of yoga. He's beautifully explained the play of Purusha and Prakriti. If you get it, it can be very, very powerful. On another line of approach, another duality presents itself to the experience of the seeker. On one side, he becomes aware of a witness recipient, observing, experiencing consciousness which does not appear to act, but for which all these activities inside and outside us seem to be undertaken and continue. He's talking about the Purusha. On one side, we are aware of a witness which does not seem to act, but for whom all activities are undertaken. On the other side, he is aware at the same time of an executive force or an energy of process which is seen to constitute, drive, and guide all conceivable activities. The executive force is Prakriti. So one part of us can be aware of a silent awareness field, and we are also aware of the thoughts, emotions, which are part of Prakriti, which are, in Sri Aurobindo's language, part of the Chit Shakti or the executive forces action, to create a myriad forms visible to us and invisible, and use them as safe, stable supports for its incessant, continuous flux of action and creation. In simple words, he's saying we can be aware of a silent witness and a constantly moving mental landscape of thoughts and emotions, which is Prakriti. Entering exclusively into the witness consciousness, he becomes silent, untouched, immobile. He sees that he has still now passively reflected and appropriated to himself the movements of nature. This is very important. Let's dwell on this. So there's a thought. Let's go back. Param, I'm sorry, I'm just taking your name, completely hypothetical. But suppose Param has behaved with me in an unacceptable way. My mind is saying Param is rude, Param is whatever. So all that, I'll think I'm thinking it. But according to Sri Aurobindo, those thoughts are not mine. They are part of the universal movement of Prakriti. But Purusha, under the spell of what I am, is Purusha. What's more personally me, though it's completely impersonal, is Purusha. What's universal is the flow of Prakriti. So, to give you a metaphor, suppose the river bed is Purusha, it's unchanging, it's stable. The flow of the river is Prakriti. Now, suppose the bed of the river under ignorance, whenever dirty water flows over the bed, it starts thinking, this is me, this is my water, I am dirty. Or when beautiful crystal clear waters flow over that bed, the Purusha starts thinking, I am beautiful. So because of our ignorance, the Purusha starts appropriating, reflecting, and making what's universal Prakriti personal to itself. Starts saying, this is me, this is mine, this is I. So, in his words, entering exclusively into the witness consciousness, he becomes silent, untouched, immobile. He sees that till now, in his ignorance, he has passively reflected and appropriated to himself the movements of nature. And it is by this reflection that they acquired from the witness soul within him what seemed a spiritual value and significance. Okay, is it clear till now? So there's no such thing as my jealousy, my anger. They are universal movements in Prakriti. They flow through me and they'll flow past me. But in my ignorance, I appropriate them. I make them me, mine, I. And that's what generates my misery. But now he has withdrawn. He's talking about a person who has broken this ignorance in himself. But now he has withdrawn that ascription or mirroring identification. Now he doesn't say to the thoughts and emotions that pass through him, this is mine, this is my anger, my jealousy. He is conscious only of his silent self and aloof from all that is in motion around it. All activities are outside him, and at once they cease to be intimately real. They appear now mechanical, detachable, endable, entering exclusively into the kinetic movement. Kinetic movement is Prakriti. He has an opposite self-awareness. He seems to his own perception a mass of activities, a formation and result of forces. If there is an active consciousness, even some kind of kinetic being in the midst of it all, yet there is no longer a free soul in it anywhere. These two different and opposite states of being alternate in him, or else stand simultaneously over against each other. One silent in the inner being observes but is unmoved and does not participate. The other, active in some outer or surface self, pursues its habitual movements. So, very simply put, Sri Aurobindo is saying that even for a person who's come closer to the truth, he'll alternate between times when he'll just be awareness and he'll be able to see the flow of Prakriti, of thoughts and emotions without identifying, without making them me or mine. And sometimes he'll be totally identified with Prakriti and feel as if he is that whole storm in Prakriti. He has entered into the intense separative perception of the great duality, soul nature, Purusha Prakriti. But as the consciousnness deepens, he becomes aware that this is only a first frontal appearance, this oscillation between being the storm and being the watcher of the storm is just the first frontal appearance. For he finds that it is by the silent support, permission, or sanction of this witness soul in him that this executive nature can work intimately or persistently upon his being. If the soul withdraws its sanction, the movements of nature and their action upon and within him become a wholly mechanical repetition. So in Life Divine, Sri Aurobindo talks about the Purusha Bhav starting as Sakshi, and then it becomes Anumanta, the giver of sanction. So when our thoughts are very, very fast, we can hardly witness them. When we watch our breath, for instance, and the thoughts slow down a little bit, we can witness because the background piece is felt. As we deepen into that witnessing, we see that this witnessing consciousness is more truly who I am than the me in the world of thoughts. And then that witnessing consciousness can withhold sanction. Anger arises, the witnessing consciousness withholds sanction from that anger and the anger collapses. So as the Sakshi Bhav deepens, it becomes Anumanta, the giver of sanction. Eventually, in the witness soul or behind it, is revealed to him the presence of a knower and master of will in nature, and all her activities more and more appear as an expression of what is known and either actively willed or passively permitted by this Lord of her existence. Prakriti herself now seems to be mechanical, only in the carefully regulated appearance of her workings, but in fact a conscious force with a soul within her, a self-aware significance in her turns, a revelation of a secret will and knowledge in her steps and figures. This duality and as aspects separate is inseparable. Wherever there is Prakriti, there is Purusha. Wherever there is Purusha, there is Prakriti. What is the practical importance of knowing this? The practical importance of knowing this is that while we stand back from the play of Prakriti and we watch it, that's the Purusha poise, but we also realize that Prakriti is not separate from Purusha, that Prakriti is a radiation of the Purusha. Prakriti is coming out of the Purusha. They are actually one in two poises. And what's the advantage of knowing that? If we realize that, see, if we say, my God status is Purusha and Prakriti is ignorance, then I'll have a very indifferent, cold outlook towards Prakriti. And with that outlook, Prakriti cannot be transformed. In Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga, it's not enough to separate from Prakriti. Prakriti has to be transformed. And for that, it's important when I'm looking at if I can see that Param's difficult behavior is part of the God realm, even my difficult behavior, even my weaknesses are equally part of the God realm. That this Prakriti is an emanation of the Purusha. So while I witness it, I don't shun it. I embrace it even as I witness it. Are you all understanding what I'm saying? Are we on the same page? Can I pause here for questions?
I have a question.
Yeah,
The question, sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
So when we are confused about Prakriti is when we start judging.
Yeah.
So at that point of time, we are saying that this is not how it should be. This is wrong.
Hmm.
The qualities that are expressing as Prakriti should actually be better.
Hmm.
Moved, or we should try and change ourselves. So that disassociation with Prakriti happens, and we start seeing it as not part of God realm.
Yes. Yes.
So how do we alter that thinking?
Just by understanding what Sri Aurobindo is saying, that Prakriti is also coming out of Purusha, like Shakti comes out of Shiva. At the lower level, Prakriti comes out of Purusha. So this is also God, a play of God. And if you just hold that thought as supreme and actually understand it in your skin, you'll automatically be kinder towards the Prakriti that flows through you. Is that making sense?
Yes, yes. But what is that voice which is constantly judging and saying that?
That's part of Prakriti. That's the conditioning of Prakriti in your head.
So that's the voice which actually is the problem. So
Yeah, so you have to witness it. You have to recognize that all you are is not that voice. When you get lost in the voice, you feel that all you are is that voice. But you have to recognize that there's a part of you beyond that voice, and that this voice is also an emanation of the God you. It's not separate from the God you.
Right.
So you have to witness it also and yet embrace it.
And allow whatever that voice is saying, or that is what should the voice be doing?
Voice will keep doing what it needs to keep doing. How can you direct what it will go on doing? Its Mahabharat, whatever. But you have to step back from it, watch it, and not hate it. That's the whole point, because that's also God. That's also a radiation of God.
Okay. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Which
Param,
means,
you were saying something?
ma'am, that these thought storms will keep happening. Basically,
Yes.
it's a part of Prakriti.
Yes.
Means, right? I mean, ultimately it means that, and they are not our thoughts, they are not my thought storms. They are just thought storms which can be observed and passed on.
Yes. Don't make them yours. Observe them and don't hate them, because they are part of God's play. And there's a meaning in every curve and line. So if this anger has come to you also, it's for a purpose, and you let its purpose be served best if you can witness it, if you can just be present to it, not make it yours. That angry you is also an empty boat, right? If the Param who is rude to me is an empty boat, the Anahita who gets angry is also an empty boat. So even I'm an empty boat. Why make my behavior so personal to myself? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So now we come to Savitri, beautiful passage. Uh, the two who are one, he's talking about Purusha and Prakriti. The two who are one. He is the maker and the world he made. He is the vision and he is the seer. He sees. He's the vision. He is himself the actor and the act. So act is Prakriti, but Ishwar is both the actor and the act. And he is the vision and the seer. Ishwar is the Purusha also, the seer also, and the actor and the act, which is Prakriti also. He is himself the knower and the known. He is himself the dreamer and the dream. There are two who are one and play in many worlds. In knowledge and ignorance, they have spoken and met, and light and darkness are their eyes interchange. Our pleasure and pain are their wrestle and embrace. In every pleasurable and painful moment of our life, it's Prakriti and Purusha wrestling and embracing. Our deeds, our hopes are intimate to their tale. They are married secretly in our thought and life. Every thought is a marriage of Purusha and Prakriti. Every part of our life is their marriage. The universe is an endless masquerade, for nothing here is utterly what it seems. It is a dream fact vision of a truth which but for the dream would not be wholly true. Beat that. He's calling the whole universe a dream fact. Is it a dream? Is it a fact? Have we ever conceived of a hyphen joining dream and a fact? So whatever we see when I'm calling Param a Nam Roop Gun who's empty, he's a dream. But he's also a fact because he is God. The Param I'm projecting is a dream. But the fact beyond that dream is that he exists. It's not that he doesn't exist, but he doesn't exist as Param. He exists as a realm of God consciousness. So it's a dream fact vision of a truth. The universe is an endless masquerade, for nothing here is utterly what it seems. It is a dream fact vision of a truth, which but for the dream would not be wholly true. A phenomenon stands out significant. Each of us is a phenomenon, an occurrence that stands out significant against dim backgrounds of eternity. We accept its space and pass by all it means. So beautiful these lines are. Each of us is a phenomena, standing phenomenon, singular is phenomenon. Each of us is a phenomenon standing out against a background of eternity. I'm actually eternity appearing to be this finite phenomenon. And people who see my face, think I'm this finite phenomenon, but they pass by the eternity that is working through me, that is giving me the space, this form, that will few years later give me another face, another form. So actually I'm an eternity. When people see me, they just see this phenomena, but they forget the eternity that supports this phenomena. I'm not just talking about myself, every form in life. A phenomenon stands out significant against dim backgrounds of eternity. these two beautiful lines that we can learn. And whenever we look at people, if you just repeat this person is a phenomena standing out significant against dim background of eternity. I'm accepting its face, but I'm passing by all it means. We accept its face and pass by all it means. A part is seen, we take it for the whole. Thus have they made their play with us for roles, author and actor with himself as seen. He moves their soul as nature she. Again, Savitri, her play, her is Chit Shakti, the Divine Mother. Her play is real. We said that Prakriti is a play, but it's not a random, futile play. It's a real play. A mystery he fulfills. There is a plan in the mother's deep world whim. It's not just a world whim, it's a deep one world whim which has a plan in it, a purpose in her vast and random game. This ever she meant since the first dawn of life. This constant will she covered with her sport. Prakriti is the mother's Leela, her sport. But it's not just a sport. There's a deep hidden evolutionary plan in the sport. This constant will she covered with her sport. What is her plan? To evoke a person in the impersonal void. Initially, there was no person. Even now, at a very ontological level, there's no person separate from the whole. But Mother has to create the illusion of this person to take evolution forward. To evoke a person in the impersonal void with the truth light, strike Earth's massive roots of trance, wake a dumb self in the inconscient depths, and raise a lost power from its python sleep, that the eyes of the timeless might look out from time. All of us is a bit of time. When we get enlightened, it gives a chance for the timeless to look out through our eyes. That the eyes of the timeless might look out from time, and the world manifest the unveiled divine. Let's read this without explanation and just feel it in our heart. Her play is real, a mystery he fulfills. There is a plan in the mother's deep world whim, a purpose in her vast and random game. This ever she meant since the first dawn of life. This constant will she covered with her sport, to evoke a person in the impersonal void, with the truth light strike Earth's massive roots of trance, wake a dumb self in the inconscious depths, and raise a lost power from its python sleep, that the eyes of the timeless might look out from time, and the world manifest the unveiled divine. So, to sum up whatever we've said, dealing with a difficult moment or a crisis, whenever a difficulty comes our way, we immediately rack our brains to find a solution. Okay, we can all understand this. This is fine, but what is unintelligent is the worry that accompanies this, the restless need to fix it. Kalyan Shraddha is not just faith. It is a knowing that there is a deeper wisdom in every unfolding of life. There is a plan in the mother's play, as we just read. And this deeper wisdom will resolve the so-called crisis in its season. This deeper knowing also recognizes that the crisis is not a crisis in the first place. These are lines from Savitri. The events that shape the appearance of our lives are born from the spirit sun of hidden powers digging a tunnel through emergency. So beautiful. The events that shape the appearance of our life are born. They come from wisdom of the spirits hidden, of sun of hidden powers. And what are those events doing? They are digging a tunnel through emergency. What is emergency? The need to evolve. So all the events in our life are digging a tunnel through emergency to take us to the light at the end of the tunnel. The events that shape the appearance of our lives are born from the spirit sun of hidden powers, digging a tunnel through emergency. This is a settled knowing in our depths, which can be tuned into by simply remembering it. In the Vedas, we call it Anusmaran, the constant remembrance of Kalyan Shraddha. Then anxiety becomes redundant. So when does anxiety become redundant? See, this passage is saying whenever a difficulty comes, we rack our brains to find a solution. If we can find a solution, good, there's no anxiety. The anxiety comes when a solution escapes us. Then we have to realize that there's no point worrying and we have to let go of the restless need to fix it. We have to tune into the faith within us that there's a deeper wisdom in every unfolding of life. That what we are calling a crisis is not a crisis. It's just a movement of the spirit sun of hidden powers, digging a tunnel through emergency to take us to the light. So if you have this settled knowing in the heart that what I'm calling a crisis or an emergency is just a circumstance created by my spirit to take me further in evolution, to make me grow. And if I've been taken to it, I'll be taken through it. And when this becomes a settled knowing, anxiety becomes redundant. Because the evolutionary fiat wants us to come home to this knowing in our depths, the appearance of difficulties are generated in our lives, repeated till we come home to the settled knowing. So there was a story, Amal Kiran's wife, Sarah, when Sarah was from Bombay, and when Sarah's sister was very sick and in hospital, Amal Kiran and Sarah were settled in the ashram. And Sarah asked mother for permission to go and be with her sister. And mother says, you can go if you like, but if you go, you'll be looking after her. If you leave it to me, my force can act on her directly. So that's what this is referring to. When Amal Kiran's wife Sarah stayed back in Pondicherry instead of rushing out of anxiety to Mumbai to nurse her critically ill sister, mother said that her force could work directly on her sister and heal her. When we worry about a person or a situation, we are metaphorically rushing with our energies to the person or the situation instead of leaving it to mother to heal. Do you get this metaphor? If Sarah had gone to Bombay, mother's working on her sister would have been compromised. Similarly, when we rush with our energies of worry to the other person, we are interfering with the mother being able to work on that person fully. Hence, whatever happens, the master key to resolution is a perfectly equanimous consciousness that disregards thoughts as imaginations of past and future and anchors in the real, this moment, the eternal now. In the now, there are no problems, just situations to be dealt with. Thoughts make them into problems. So also when anchored in Kalyan Shraddha, the mind is less influenced to think in order to feel safe, to resolve, to fix. That is the wisdom of Mezumi Roshi's words, make the effort of no effort. This is the effort we owe everything and everyone in the world, which is after all a world of natural intelligence, wisdom and harmony. Trust it. So to make the effort of no effort is just to make the effort of staying anchored in Kalyan Shraddha. We feel rattled after an energy exchange with a so-called negative person, but only like can enter like. If we remain equanimous, our being vibrates with a frequency too high for the lower vibration to enter. If we get rattled, we need to transform that part of us which readily takes shelter in anxiety and restless overthinking. So it's like two tuning forks. If I'm at the same, resonance happens when they vibrate at the same frequency. But suppose my frequency is much higher than that of the negative person, then I won't get pulled into vibrating at the negative person's frequency. And if I do get pulled into it, I have to transform that frequency in me, which is getting pulled into the negativity of that person. And the place of high frequency in me is always awareness. If that person is creating angst in me, I always have the choice to step back and watch that angst instead of calling it my angst, my anxiety, my agitation. It is outside me. I am the awareness. I am just watching this. And then I can be completely free of it. Any questions? Anything to share? Okay, so let's wrap this up.
Ma'am, just one question. This is Anjan here.
Sure, Anjan?
Yeah, when you spoke about evolution also that happens from birth to birth.
Yes.
If there is no param to start with.
There is no param?
There is no param. It's
No
part of,
paramjeet, yeah.
no paramjeet, yeah. So whose evolution are we talking about then? From birth
we are
to
talking
birth?
about the evolution of the psychic being, Anjan. It's the psychic being which evolves from birth to birth.
Which has taken the form of paramjit as far as Prakriti is concerned.
Yes, in this birth, it's
We
taken param's
say that.
form. Yeah.
Or no?
Sorry, Anjan, it's taken
For its
param's
evolution.
form. Yes, it has taken param's form for its evolution.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Ma'am, is the psychic being different from the Purush?
Yes, in a sense. See, the unchanging part of us is Purush, is the Purusha. But the psychic being is the part of our soul which evolves. It's the evolutionary status of the divine component in us. Like the Jivatma above our head is the unchanging part of our soul. It never changes. It supports the psychic being as it's growing from birth to birth. Yeah?
So the Jivatma and the psychic being are two different.
Yes. That in Sri Aurobindo'S parlance, the psychic being is called the Chaitya Purush, and the Jivatma is the static presence above our head, which supports the Chaitya Purush in its growth from birth to birth.
Okay. So that would be the subtle body, as in such, the psychic being, the
No. Subtle body is it's connected to the psychic being, but I won't say the two are one.
Okay.
Yeah. Welcome. Anyone else? There's a question, what are these many worlds? Maybe the question was asked on the chat at a particular point. Can you
But I was,
elaborate?
when you were reading those lines from Savitri,
What lines?
uh,
The two who are one who have played in many worlds. Yes. So the many worlds are the world of our mind, the mental world, the vital world, the physical world, all the worlds. All the worlds and all the planes in existence is a play of Purusha and Prakriti.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Any more questions? Okay.
Anahita, so the Jivatman and the Purusha are different, is it?
One can't say that. See, in the subtle realm, there are no divisions. Everything flows like the Jivatma has to have the Purusha component, or how can it be static? And the psychic being will also have a component of the Purusha. See, when he says that the whole world is only he and she, every part of our being is made up of the interplay of Purusha and Prakriti.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Anything else? Okay, then let's sit up. We'll be quiet and we'll put together what we've just heard. So, we started our class with Khalil Gibran's words that many of us spend our whole lives running from feeling pain with the mistaken belief that we cannot bear the pain, but we have already borne the pain. What we have not done is to feel all that we are beyond the pain. So, what is it in us that is beyond the pain? There is a voice in our head that may complain of many things. That's the voice of the ego, a conditioned mind pattern, a thought. But there is also something that's aware of the voice. This awareness is that part of you which is always untouched by pain. And in fact, whenever you're worried, it's good to recognize that all the stories that constitute your worry begin with what if thoughts, which are largely imagination because none of us can look into the future. So when we are trying to fight our fears, we are trying to fight a phantom, something that does not exist, and we cannot fight imagination. The best way to fight it is to see through it, to know that it is only imagination, and come back to the real, which is your breath, which is the awareness field beyond thought. And then to see that whatever your mind is calling unacceptable, it calls unacceptable because it divorces it from God. But if you really see that these two principles, Purusha and Prakriti, that make you up, Purusha is the awareness, Prakriti is the play of thoughts in your mind, are both emanations of one God field. Then you can watch the storm of thoughts without feeling disgusted by it, because this too is an emanation, a radiation of the Lord. And therefore, Sri Aurobindo says, the two who are one, Purusha and Prakriti who are one, There are two who are one and play in many worlds. In knowledge and ignorance they have spoken and met, and light and darkness are their eyes interchange. Our pleasure and pain are their wrestle and embrace. Our deeds, our hope, are intimate to their tale. They are married secretly in our thought and life. So when we see that both these aspects are part of one God essence, we can watch Prakriti being anchored in Purusha. And the more we deepen into this witness consciousness, the Sakshi Bhav becomes Anumanta Bhav, the giver of sanction. The witness can sanction certain movements of Prakriti, and when that sanction is withdrawn, the movement of Prakriti ceases. So whenever we are dealing with a difficult moment or crisis, we notice our brain is always overthinking to find a solution. If we find a solution, that's good, then there's no more anxiety. But if we don't find a solution, it is futile to go on overthinking. Because what we are calling a crisis, it's not really a crisis at all. As Sri Aurobindo says in Savitri, the events that shape the appearance of our lives are born from the spirit sun of hidden powers, digging a tunnel through emergency. So the crisis is just part of the evolutionary plan taken to take us forward. So then we keep our peace and trust the solution to come our way when the time is right.